You know that feeling when you're scrolling and you see someone who seems to have it all figured out? The perfect morning routine, the serene smile, the life that looks less lived and more curated. We call them the self-contained. The ones who never seem to leak emotion, who handle disasters with a chilling calm. We call them resilient. We call them strong. But what if that strength isn't what we think it is? What if it's not composure but containment? Meet Alex. To everyone who knows her, Alex is the anchor. The friend you call at 2 a.m. when your world is falling apart. The colleague who delivers flawless work while chaos erupts in the office. Her voice is always level. Her solutions are always practical. She is in every observable way unshakable. People describe her as a rock. What they don't see is the geology of that rock formed under immense silent pressure. Alex grew up in a house where emotions were treated like volatile chemicals. Love was conditional, earned through achievement and quiet compliance. A bad grade wasn't a disappointment. It was a character flaw. Tears weren't comforted. They were a tactical error, evidence of a weakness that could be used against you. So Alex learned the core survival algorithm: feel nothing, show less. Emotional expression wasn't communication. It was a vulnerability, a data point that could be weaponized. She didn't learn to process sadness. She learned to archive it. She didn't learn to voice anger. She learned to convert it into cold, hyper-efficient action. Psychologically, this is more than just being private. This is a sophisticated internal security system. Every feeling is intercepted at the gates, scanned for threat, and neutralized before it ever reaches the surface. For Alex, calm isn't a mood. It's a discipline. A performance she mastered so long ago she forgot she was performing. Her relationships are built on this foundation. She is the ultimate giver, the problem solver, the steady hand. But she cannot times receive asterisk. A simple "how are you" really feels like a trap. An offer of help feels like an accusation of incompetence. Her inner wiring whispers the old familiar rule: need is dangerous. To need is to be controlled. To need is to be hurt. So she builds a life of impeccable, lonely stability. She is loved but never truly known. She is relied upon but never leaned on. Her strength becomes her isolation chamber, and then the plot twist. It doesn't come as a crisis, but as a mundane inconvenience. A minor surgery, something simple, outpatient. She'll be in and out, self-sufficient as always, but the anesthesia betrays her. In the hazy, vulnerable twilight of recovery, the security system fails. The archives open. She wakes up not to pain, but to a silent, relentless stream of tears. She can't stop them. They aren't about the surgery. They're about everything. The years of holding, of handling, of being the strong one. The childhood fear she'd buried so deep she thought it was gone. In that sterile room with a nurse she's never met, gently asking if she's in pain, Alex has no practical solution. No action to take. For the first time in her adult life, her system has no response. The container has cracked. And the person who witnesses it, this quiet, unscripted breakdown, isn't a lover or a lifelong friend. It's the practical, no-nonsense nurse. A woman who sees 100 patients a day. She doesn't offer empty comfort. She doesn't say, "it's okay." She simply places a hand on Alex's shoulder, a firm, grounding weight, and says, "let it out." The body keeps score, honey. It always does. In that moment, Alex doesn't have a revelation. She has a somatic reckoning. The truth isn't a thought. It's a physical sensation. The tension in her jaw she's had since she was 12. The permanent knot between her shoulders. The quiet, constant hum of anxiety she mistook for motivation. It was all evidence. A paper trail of feeling her psychology had tried to delete, but her body had faithfully saved. The strength wasn't a lie, but it was a fortress built around a wound. And fortresses by design are lonely places to live. We misunderstand people like Alex. We see their control and call it maturity. We see their silence and call it peace. But often it's not peace. It's a ceasefire they've negotiated with their own nervous system. A life lived in the neutral gear between feeling nothing and feeling too much. The real courage isn't in the holding. Anyone can numb out. The real courage is in the first terrifying act of lowering the drawbridge, of letting one person see the rubble inside the fortress walls, not to fix it, just to acknowledge it exists. Alex is learning in her 40s, a lesson her childhood never taught her. You can be strong times and times soft. You can be capable times and times cared for. The vulnerability you were taught was a weakness is in fact the only thing that can connect your strength to another human being. The healing begins not when the tears stop, but when you finally allow someone to witness them. If you've ever been called the strong one, tell me in the comments what that cost you. And if you want more breakdowns of the hidden psychology behind our everyday masks, subscribe. Because sometimes the most fascinating prison is the one we build inside ourselves. Thank you for watching. Have you ever met someone who seems to move through life without friction? The person whose desk is always clear, whose schedule is a masterpiece of precision, whose emotions are delivered in calm, measured tones, like a carefully prepared briefing. We call them organized. We call them disciplined. We mistake their control for peace. But what if that control isn't peace? What if it's a containment protocol? Meet David, a man who built his life around a single, unshakable principle: predictability. His world is a series of perfectly managed systems. His finances are spreadsheets. His relationships are calendars. His emotions are data points logged and analyzed. He is, by all external metrics, a man who has solved the problem of chaos, until his 5-year-old daughter asks him a question he cannot spreadsheet. "Daddy," she says, her small voice cutting through the quiet of his home office. "Why do you never get messy?" He looks at his hands clean and still on the keyboard. He looks at the immaculate room. And for the first time in decades, the system glitches. He has no answer. To understand David, you must understand the origin of the protocol. He was the child of beautiful, volatile chaos. Parents who loved in grand theatrical gestures and fought in earth-shaking crescendos. A home where dinner could be a celebration or a battlefield, with no warning and no rules. Love was a hurricane, thrilling, all-consuming, and utterly destructive. A child's brain in that environment doesn't learn to feel. It learns to forecast. It becomes a miniature meteorologist, constantly scanning the atmospheric pressure in the room, predicting the next storm. Joy becomes a warning sign, because joy in that ecosystem was often the prelude to a crash. So David didn't choose control. He engineered it. He built a life operating system where nothing was left to chance, because chance had once meant pain. His relationships were low-risk, low-yield investments. His career was in logistics, the poetry of predictable outcomes. This wasn't coldness. This was a sophisticated trauma response. He wasn't avoiding love. He was defragging the hard drive of his heart, deleting any program that might cause a system crash. The plot twist isn't an event. It's a tiny, repeated erosion. It's his daughter's sticky handprint on the glass door he just cleaned. It's the spontaneous, illogical laughter of his wife at a joke that makes no sense. It's the dog dragging mud across the perfect floor. These are not crises. They are breaches in the protocol. And each one triggers a silent internal alarm, a relic of that little boy bracing for the storm. But the storm never comes. Instead, there is just life. Messy, unbidden, and completely safe. The moment of reckoning happens on a Tuesday. His daughter is painting. A cup of water tips a river of cerulean blue rushing across his pristine oak table. He watches it happen in slow motion. His body tenses the old script, screaming times: contain, control, correct. But his daughter looks up, her eyes wide, not with fear but with wonder. "Look, Daddy," she whispers. "We made an ocean." And in that suspended second, the architecture of his life reveals its flaw. He had built a fortress against chaos, but in doing so he had walled out the ocean. He had protected himself from the hurricane, but also from the tide that brings life, that reshapes shores, that is never, ever clean. The strength of his control was real, but it was the strength of a museum guard preserving a beautiful empty room. We pathologize chaos and sanctify order. But the human soul is not a filing cabinet. It is an ecosystem. It requires both the mountain's stability times and times the river's wild changing course. David's protocol wasn't a life. It was a life support system, keeping him safe, but also keeping him from the messy, fertile soil where real growth happens. He is learning in his quiet, methodical way a new definition of strength. It is not the ability to keep the water in the cup. It is the courage to let it spill, to see what shape it makes, and to trust that you and the people who love you can navigate the beautiful spreading blue of it together. The healing begins not when you finally master the mess, but when you realize the mess was never the problem. The problem was the fear of the stain and the life you missed trying to avoid it. If you've ever believed that to be loved you must first be flawless, tell me in the comments what that belief built for you and what it walled off. And if you want more breakdowns of the invisible architectures we live inside, subscribe. Because the most powerful prison is often the one we mistake for a sanctuary. Thank you for watching, of course. Here is part 3, crafted in the specified style. Asterisk, asterisk, part 3. The crack in the system, asterisk, asterisk. It happened on a Tuesday. Of course it did. Because the moment that unravels a life you've spent decades meticulously assembling never arrives with drama. It arrives quietly in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, wearing the face of someone you love. He was in his home office, a space of clean lines, neutral tones and controlled silence. The kind of room that doesn't just suggest order but demands it. Through the doorway he could see his daughter at the dining table, absorbed in a watercolor painting. Her world was one of unscripted color of joy that didn't ask for permission. His was a world of parameters. He watched as she reached for a brush, her small hand bumping the cup of rinse water. It tipped. A river of cerulean blue rushed across the pristine sealed surface of the oak table, a bold, invasive streak against the perfection. His body reacted before his mind. A jolt of adrenaline, a tightening in his jaw, the old deep-wired script flashing in his nervous system. Contain, control, correct. This is a breach. This is chaos. This must be stopped. He was already halfway out of his chair, a lecture about carelessness forming on his tongue. But then he saw her face. She didn't look up in fear. She didn't brace for his disappointment. She looked at the spreading blue with wide, awe-filled eyes. A slow smile bloomed on her face as she watched the current find its own path pooling in the grain of the wood. "Look, Daddy," she whispered, her voice full of wonder. "We made an ocean." And in that suspended second, the entire architecture of his life revealed its fatal flaw. He had spent a lifetime building a fortress. Every rule, every protocol, every ounce of control was a brick placed carefully against the chaos of the world, against the messiness of feeling too much, needing too much, times too much. He had constructed a sanctuary of predictability, but as he looked from the terror in his own clenched fists to the awe on his daughter's face, he understood. In walling out the hurricane, he had also walled out the tide. He had made himself safe from the storm, but also from the nutrient-rich, chaotic, life-giving wash of the sea itself. The very thing that reshapes shores, that brings new life, that is by its nature uncontrollable. His strength was real, but it was the strength of a curator in a museum of one, preserving a beautiful empty room where nothing could ever be touched or changed or truly lived in. We pathologize chaos. We sanctify order. We speak of emotional regulation as if the goal is a flat line on a monitor. But the human psyche is not a machine to be calibrated. It is a living biome. It requires the solid ground of the mountain times the unpredictable, eroding, nourishing flow of the river. One without the other is not stability. It is sterility. His system wasn't a life. It was a life support system. It kept his heart beating, but it filtered out the very oxygen of spontaneity, of connection, of grace. It protected him from pain, but at the cost of joy, which is never a clean, orderly transaction. Joy is a spill. It is porous. It gets everywhere. He is learning in his slow and methodical way a new arithmetic of strength. It is not the force required to keep every drop of water perfectly contained within the lines of the cup. It is the courage to allow the spill, to observe the shape it makes without immediately reaching for a cloth, to trust that you and the people who love you can navigate the beautiful spreading unknown of it together. The healing begins not when you finally achieve a state of perfect, unblemished control. It begins the moment you realize the mess was never the enemy. The enemy was the prison of your own fear and the vast, colorful ocean of a life you missed while building it. If you've ever believed that to be worthy of love, you must first be a closed system, perfect, contained, and needing nothing. Tell me in the comments what that belief cost you. What did it wall off? And if you want more breakdowns of the invisible cages we mistake for safety, subscribe. Because the most profound liberation often starts with a crack, a spill, and a moment of seeing the chaos not as a threat, but as a new possible world. Thank you for watching. Asterisk, asterisk. The psychology of the human shield. Asterisk, asterisk. Have you ever met someone who seems to absorb the chaos of the world so that others don't have to? The person in the family who handles the crisis call at 3 a.m. The friend who calmly navigates the conflict so no one else has to raise their voice. The partner who anticipates every logistical snag before it happens. We call them rocks, anchors, the strong ones. But what if that strength isn't just a personality trait? What if it's a psychological architecture built for a singular, devastating purpose, to become a human shield? To understand this, you don't look at the crisis they're managing. You look at the one they're remembering. For the human shield, adulthood isn't their first tour of duty. Their nervous system was commissioned in childhood, in a home where the emotional weather was unpredictable and violent. They learned to read atmospheric pressure in a parent's silence. They learned to track the trajectory of a mood before it made landfall. Their play wasn't distraction, it was reconnaissance. Their childhood wasn't a time of learning times how times to feel, but learning times how to predict times feeling in others, so they could strategically position themselves between the storm and everyone else. This is where the wiring is laid. Not for empathy, but for advanced emotional threat detection. Their amygdala isn't overactive. It's Time's professional asterisk. It doesn't scream danger for them. It coolly calculates trajectories, identifying the incoming emotional shrapnel and mapping the optimal path to intercept it. We mistake this for selflessness. We call it being a caretaker, but psychologically it's something closer to a hostage negotiation. The unspoken deal is this times. If I can absorb this tension, if I can solve this problem, if I can make myself the target, then maybe the people I love will be safe, and maybe just maybe the love will stay. Asterisk. Their strength then is not a virtue. It's a currency. A currency they spend in a desperate economy of belonging, buying safety for others, with the quiet devaluation of their own needs. They don't have boundaries. They have blast walls, and they stand on the outside of them, facing the world, so that everyone they care for can live safely within. This creates a specific haunting loneliness. It's not the loneliness of being Time's left asterisk, it's the loneliness of being Time's leaned on asterisk. You are the pillar in the room, and pillars are not held, they are expected to hold. You become so essential to the structural integrity of everyone else's emotional world that your own crumbling is not an option. To admit fatigue would be to risk the collapse of the entire ecosystem you've built your worth upon. So you don't crumble, you petrify. And here is the plot twist, the quiet tragedy that changes everything. Asterisk. Asterisk. The very people they shield often have no idea the war is even happening. Asterisk. Asterisk. The partner sees only calm competence, not the internal command center running constant simulations. The children remember a childhood of remarkable stability, unaware it was a stability times manufactured times by one person's silent vigilance. The friends see a problem solver, not a veteran of a private endless conflict. The human shield becomes a ghost in their own life, a spectral force that maintains peace, invisible, precisely because they are so effective. Their greatest fear, that their needs would be a burden, is realized not through rejection but through a far more gentle oblivion. They are so good at their job that their suffering becomes undetectable even to those they love most. The moment of healing then is not a dramatic surrender. It is a quiet, terrifying act of asterisk asterisk malfunction asterisk asterisk. It is the migraine that finally forces them to ask for the grocery run. It is the single, unbidden tear that falls during a mundane argument, shocking everyone in the room, most of all themselves. It is the body after decades of flawless service finally going on strike. In that broken moment, they witness the impossible. The world does not end. The people they shielded do not collapse. They step times forward asterisk. They fumble, they adapt, they times hold asterisk. And the human shield, for the first time, experiences what it is to be times on the receiving end of the buffer asterisk. They feel the profound disorientation of being protected. This is the new arithmetic they must learn, that love is not a transaction secured by service. It is a reciprocal ecosystem. A true shelter is not a single wall facing the wind. It is a circle where people take turns, standing guard where the strength is in the rotation, not the martyrdom. The human shield begins to heal when they realize their most sacred duty was based on a flawed premise. They weren't protecting the fragile people from a cruel world. They were protecting themselves from a deeper, more ancient fear that without a crisis to manage, they would have no value. That without a war to fight, they would have no identity. If you have ever believed that to be loved, you must first be useful, that your worth is your weight-bearing capacity. Tell me in the comments what you had to set down in order to finally feel your own arms. And if you want more breakdowns of the invisible armor we mistake for our skin, subscribe. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to stand and fight, but to finally quietly let yourself be seen as the wounded one. Thank you for watching.